Today, I'm going to walk you through a real supply chain problem and two products we offer at InterSystems that can help us solve this problem. So first, I'll set the stage with our problem. We're set today at a company that is a retailer of shoes, both online and in physical retail. And they have two warehouses where they manage these incoming shoes from their different suppliers and then ship them out both direct to consumer online and on these huge pallets to all of their different retail stores. And as you can imagine, they really have like a wealth of data moving through these warehouses of their inventory levels, different thresholds that they need to set within their systems, and this can live in different WMS systems, ERP systems. But in addition to all of this supply chain data, they also have a wealth of employee data. It takes a lot of people to make this warehouse run smoothly, and they need to schedule all of these professionals. They all have different qualification levels, they work different labor profile roles, picking and packing these orders, shipping them out. And they need to manage both all of their inventory and supply chain data and all of their employee data. And when this data lives in different systems, they can only make decisions about one or the other at a time. By bringing them together into one supply chain system, they can make the most informed decisions that will be the best outcomes for their company and their supply chain. So let's take a look at the two kind of tools in our toolbox that we have to work with today. One is InterSystems Data Studio with Supply Chain Module. And this is going to act as sort of our data gateway. This is going to bring the data together from all of these disparate systems I mentioned before into one place. And it's kind of a low-code tool that helps us build these data integration pipelines that we all know can be so powerful, but without requiring an entire implementation team over the course of several months. And then the supply chain module gives us the additional extensible supply chain data model right there in IDS, so I can query my data right there. Or I can push it out to another system. And this could be a system already existing in my supply chain, or it could be something like Supply Chain Orchestrator. And this is our data platform that offers us that same extensible data model, but additionally an analytics framework and an issue management and decision intelligence lifecycle. So not only can I see all of my data, I can get the most insight possible out of my data, and I can make the decisions that really matter. So I'm going to hop right into a quick demo, and I'm going to show you what we can build using these two tools to solve our warehouse problem. So I'll start here first with Data Studio. And Data Studio has a lot of different functionality that can be super useful in the supply chain space, like snapshots for auditing, or the research assistant for schema information. But I'm going to focus today on recipes. These are those low-code data pipelines I was talking about. And what I'm going to look at today is master data. So this is really just sort of a simple CSV-based recipe where I'm taking my location information about different warehouses or different customer addresses, and I'm taking my supplier information. So master data that's relatively stable that I might have across some different CSVs in my supply chain. We're going to take a look at how we can all bring it together in Data Studio. So first we start with staging the CSVs. This is where you can see the schema information that I already had coming in. So we have this one location spreadsheet, but then two different supplier spreadsheets. I have like different column names that I need to kind of cross-reference in between. But then once that's been brought into Data Studio, that'll be in our staging tables where we can perform further operations on it, like a transformation. So here you can see really kind of the range of where we go from like no code to low code. So like a no code example of a transformation would be something like uppercase on our state, or something a little bit more technical, but still pretty simple, with this custom SQL transformation to generate the UID. I might want to concatenate with like some metadata about my batch ID to create a unique identifier. Moving on from transformation comes validation. We're going to perform a validation in both of our supplier systems on this DUNS number, which is my unique supplier ID. And I just want to make sure it's a 9-digit integer, like I expect. I've set this to be a fatal validation, meaning if I get a DUNS number that's not what I'm expecting, my whole pipeline will stop. And then I think this is where some of the real power of Data Studio comes in, which is reconciliation. So we have all this data in all these disparate systems, and sometimes it might contradict each other, which could be a huge issue in maintaining the integrity of my supply chain. So here you can see we've set it to be that if the DUNS number and DUNS columns in my primary and secondary source match, then the string has to match as well for the name. And this will ensure that our data is consistent across all of our different systems. Moving on from reconciliation, we go to promotion. Here we're promoting internally into our supply chain data model. You can see what that looks like as I insert into my location table or as I join across my two supplier systems to insert into my supplier table. And here we're promoting it internally, but we can also, as I mentioned, promote externally, push out to other systems. And a great candidate for that is Supply Chain Orchestrator. So now let's take a look at a solution that we've built with Supply Chain Orchestrator to solve our warehouse management problem. And here you can see we've brought together all of this data that could otherwise live in all of these disparate systems. Here we have some workload information about the performance I'm expecting in my warehouse in the next, looks like over the course of the year. We can see my expected delivery volume, inbound and outbound, and also get a look at the employee labor in FTE that we expect. We can also see my unloading time, picking time. We have all that performance information at a bird's eye view. Here in the performance page as well, we can see how efficiently my warehouse is moving. And then we can get a look at something more on the business side, like my sales. I can see my sales forecasting and what I'm expecting for my business in the next 12 weeks. And then the workforce information. This otherwise would live in some sort of employee scheduling system. As you can see, we're scheduling in kind of a flatline way, which might not match up with what we're really going to need for our warehouses. Here we can see my staff calendar. This information that otherwise might live in some sort of spreadsheet and employee scheduling system is now being brought together with the actual sales and supply chain data for my warehouses. And now I'll move to planning. This is where I think you can really see the value of bringing all of this disparate data together, is that now we can actually just map our warehouse activity as sort of a supply versus demand of labor. You can see like the workload that we expect based off of our sales forecasts and the workload that we have scheduled based off of our employee scheduling. And you can see it in the places where we have a deficit. Supply Chain Orchestrator is going to flag that as an issue that needs to be addressed. So let's take a look at one of these issues now. It looks like we're understaffed for picking labor at Warehouse 1 over the course of this week. So what I can do now is I can actually go ahead and analyze that issue. And I can configure a variety of business processes, which will help me analyze my issues. And that happens at implementation time based on my company's existing standard operating procedures. Here we just have one option, which is my basic understaffing process. But I might have different processes to account for maybe time optimization, cost optimization, etc. So I could go ahead and run my analysis there. We can see I'm given 3 different options. One of them is recommended to me, and then the others seem to be not recommended. I can take no action. That seems to have a huge financial risk. I can pre-pick some orders and offer up employee overtime, and that's recommended to me because it seems to be the most cost-effective option. Or I can hire emergency temp staff, which seems to be a little more expensive. And this option does make sense to me, but I might want a little bit more information. So I can go ahead and chat with my AI assistant. And here I'm asking my AI assistant about why this option was chosen for me. And the AI assistant is sort of like a subject matter expert on my existing business processes. So the AI assistant isn't necessarily like making the decision for me, but they're taking a look through kind of the complicated codified business process. And they're telling me, a business user, like why this is the best option. Here you can say, it seems like that it will help me prepare for predictable peaks 24 hours in advance with the lowest estimated costs versus the do nothing scenario, which is why it was chosen. And that makes sense to me. So I can go ahead and accept this issue, and then my configured workflow will get kicked off in the background. And so that might be sending out an email to actually offer up that overtime to employees, or like moving around my warehouse orders in the system. And here you can really see like the value of how bringing this disparate data together through Data Studio and then into Supply Chain Orchestrator helped me to take what otherwise could have been like a complicated multi-step, multi-system problem and solve it easily and quickly in one place.